If you'd like to be able to listen to the show without ads and have full access to bonus content, that's an option. To find out how, please go to dogmanencounters.com/podcast. If you listened to last Friday night's show, you heard tonight's guest come on and talk about several Dogman encounters he's had. Well, he had so many experiences that we didn't have time for me to ask him questions about those encounters. Well, with that in mind, I asked him if he'd be interested to come back for a Q&A. He agreed to do that, so here we are. Mark, thanks so much for coming back.
Hey, Vic, I appreciate you having me again.
Well, we appreciate you being here. We really do. Mark, for the people who missed episode 615 last Friday night, please tell them about yourself.
All right, my name's Mark. I'm from West Tennessee. I was born in 1991. And, growing up, we was a small town, wasn't much to do around, so kind of outdoorsy type of person. I raced motocross most of the time, played football and baseball and all that. Once I got out of high school, I went into the trade school for industrial maintenance, and then that's what I do now. So I do a lot of PLC programming, industrial electricity and whatnot. But other than that, I like to just take care of my family and keep the bills paid.
Yeah, as long as you're doing that, you're doing it right.
That's it.
Hats off to you. And a lot of people who are listening to tonight's show, they probably missed Friday night's show. So with that in mind, can you run us through the encounters that you told us about on Friday's show? I don't need you to go into nearly as much detail as you did Friday night, but if you can talk us through your experiences so that people listening tonight who missed that show have an idea what happened to you, that'd be great.
All right, like short story form, my best friend Sam, one night it was a full moon, he was riding his bicycle, and like I said, we were younger back then, and he seen this Dogman or Werewolf, whatever it is, down by the railroad tracks at the old dump. And, he made a big hype about it, wouldn't come out after dark. But the main thing is, after we got a driver's license and the years went on, he would never stop and go pee when we were riding around unless there was a street light. So it was always bringing the issue up because we would be riding around and he wouldn't let me stop unless there was a street light to pee. Well, one night we were riding around and that happened. And I was like, well, let's just go find this thing, because he obviously made me go stop at a street light to go pee. But so we went riding around looking for it, and we didn't see nothing. It was a full moon that night as well. But I dropped him off, and then on my way home, I actually ran into my car. And it was on the highway. I was doing about 70 miles an hour, and it knocked it off the road, but it didn't kill it. And it left black hair jammed in my bumper. I collected the hair and put it in a chip bag, and it's in the car now still out at the shop. And then as time went on, every time it was a full moon, we'd kind of make a game out of it. Let's go look for the werewolf. Well, we'd ride around, and we wouldn't see it most of the time, but one of the times we were riding, we was with Tyler and Aaron and me and Sam, and we're going down a Wellington Road. And lo and behold, here comes that thing. It come running right across the road. And then right to the left, we stopped right there where it crossed. And Tyler pulled an AR-15 out, had a flashlight on it and a laser. And he pointed it at the werewolf or whatever you want to call it, Dogman. And like I said, the eyes lit up red, and we took off. After that, he didn't even shoot it. He got so scared, he dropped his gun and took off. And then as we were going down the road about 5 or so miles, we seen something again to the left of the road in the tree line. And so that kind of freaked us out as well, but we kept on rolling about. And then once Tyler dropped everybody off, I was the last one to get dropped off. He swore to me that he knew that we were playing a joke on him and who was it. And he thought we were actually making the whole thing up and had somebody in a gorilla suit or something waiting on him. But then, like I said, after that night, and another night that was kind of spooky, we were riding down Mathis Lane, and it dead ends, and I'd had it smoking a cigarette, and I put it out in a Mountain Dew can on accident, and about 5 minutes later or so, Sam took a swig of that can, and we took a swig of it, he about threw up, and he literally just slung the thing out the window, and you can hear it land in the woods, but we turned around at the dead end and came on back through, and that Mountain Dew can was sitting right in the middle of the road. We didn't see nothing physically, but just the can being in the middle of the road, it was kind of creepy. And it was a full moon once again, and we were out looking for the werewolf Dogman. So, and then, like I said, another time, my brother and them, they seen it one time too, but he said it was a bear. It had to have been, but we don't have bears around here, so.
You went out looking for it before you started having these encounters with it. Do you think it started revealing itself to you because it somehow knew you were looking for it, or for some other reason?
I kind of felt that way. It's just the way that we felt about it is we always said this, it had to be a full moon and you had to be talking about it to see it. And that last time, whenever I seen it in my yard, it freaked me out. I mean, it really freaked me out because when you're riding around and you're on a back road or something, that's not your home, and if you can see whatever out there, it's okay. It's not in your homestead, but when I went out my door that night, looked to the left on the side yard and seen it in the yard, that was it for me. I wasn't playing games no more. It became serious at that point.
Oh, I bet it did. Like I told you before, it's one thing to have encounters with these guys away from home, but when they bring the party to your house, that's a totally different matter. So I understand. I get it. I really do. When you consider all these things, though, like it's seemingly understanding, it's seemingly knowing when you're looking for it, and some of these other things, some of these other factors involved with your encounters, it's kind of hard to explain this away by you dealing with a flesh and blood creature that doesn't have any special abilities. How sure are you or aren't you that this is some kind of a spiritual being, or are you convinced it's flesh and blood?
That's a hard thing to answer, but I'm 100% sure that it is a physical being. And as far as spiritual God, I don't know about spiritual because, multiple people, if you're there, you can see it. And kind of like in a spiritual sense, only one person would see it, kind of like a hallucination of some sort. But it was definitely in the flesh and blood because, like I said, when I hit it, I did get hair from it. But there wasn't no blood on the vehicle or the ground or anything. But I would definitely say it's in the flesh and blood for sure. And as far as the spiritual goes, though, but it's kind of odd that when we talk about it is whenever it shows itself. If it's not a full moon and we're not talking about it, we don't never see it. But I don't know. It's kind of a hard question because I haven't really been up close to the thing. And there isn't really much documentation on the thing either, other than you could get online and read books and whatnot, but you just really don't know what to believe when you're online or reading stuff. But when you can see something that's physically in front of you, then, it's there.
Oh, there's no denying it. If you've had a Dogman encounter and would like to speak with me about it, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. You just said that you think it's flesh and blood, but if something happens down the road that convinces you this thing is a spiritual being, how much worse does that make all this?
I think it makes it better, Vic.
Really?
Yes. I'm always up for a good spook anyways, but as long as that thing don't try to hurt me or my family, it can do whatever it wants to do and live its life just like I am. But the fact that it's so sneaky and whatnot, and you just don't see it all the time too, it just makes you kind of wonder. It's the wondering that'll get people.
Yeah, that's what gets them every time. And I can appreciate you feeling the way you do, but something to consider, if you haven't considered this already, because you just might have, is the fact that it obviously seems to enjoy frightening you. And if it is a spiritual being instead of a flesh and blood creature, then by being a spiritual being in nature, it's going to be able to frighten you that much more because of all the things it can do that a flesh and blood creature couldn't. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that is true. And we don't know how this thing works. Does it run off frequencies? How does it see? Is it colorblind, or is it kind of like a fly? Does it have, multiple dimensions that it's seeing in? So I don't know, Vic. That's just kind of odd. I don't know how to really explain it, but it's definitely something to worry about. If you're seeing it and it's done came to your house. And like me, I've truly believed that we all got a mark of the beast on it kind of type deal. Is he knows who we are, and knows we've seen it. And I don't know if it keeps track on us to this day or not, or even if the thing still exists and is around, because it has been a few years since this has all happened. But, you know, when I was talking to a girl at the gas station at Exxon, the cashier down in Walnut, I told her, you know, hey, check out the episode on Dogman Encounters. I gave it to her, and she actually told me her own experience. And this is the first time I've ever heard of somebody seeing one during the daylight. She claims that her and a couple of her cousins were walking down in Hatchie Bottom, and there's an old wooden bridge, and it was broad daylight outside. And when they walked up toward this bridge, that there was something black laying across the bridge, and it was really, really long. And she said it looked like it had been in a fire, like it was like sitting there whimpering type deal, like it was suffering and injured on the bridge. Well, when they got close to it, you know, they all paused and looked at it, and the thing jumped up, and it said that she said it just was evil, pure evil, that it was the devil. It was this most gnarliest thing she'd ever seen in her life. And when it took off running, it was literally plowing trees down as it was running through the woods. Now, I made her describe that more. I was like, what do you mean plowing trees down? I said, you talking about saplings or what? She was like, yeah, not real big trees, but saplings, trees that are about at least, 3 to 4 inches tall. She said it was just running them plumb over as it was running away into the woods. So in this encounter happened around 3 o'clock during the daylight. From what I understood, this thing only come out at nighttime. And she was saying she seen something similar during the day. It acted like it was hurt and injured and was whimpering on that bridge. So I don't know. And that brings a whole new light to the whole ball game for me, because as far as I'm concerned, it comes out at night and when it's a full moon.
Oh, no, they definitely come out during the day. I apologize for not making sure you understood that. Yeah, there have been a lot of encounters during the daytime hours.
Yeah, see, I didn't know that, Vic. Yeah, I did not know that.
Oh, yeah, unfortunately, you can have a Dogman encounter anytime. When she talked about it, did she ever describe it in a way that made you think, okay, yeah, it must have been a Dogman or quote-unquote werewolf?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. A matter of fact, she's about a half a mile up the road from me now. I just went in the store and grabbed a Red Bull before we started talking. But she said that it was about 7 foot tall, and that's about accurate. When you listen to anybody's interview, they always say it's over 6 foot tall anyway. So she said it was 7 foot tall. In the eyes, she said they were red. Now, not like it red glowing that night when me and Martindale were out and Sam, when the flashlight was on it. She's saying that the thing had red eyes in the broad daylight, and that the hair on it, it wasn't real thick hair like a hair on your head. It was like spaced out, kind of like it'd been in a fire or some sort. So in the skin, she said that it was just, the skin was black as well, but it was just kind of like a charred black color, and that the bones and everything and where the joints are at, she said every joint was protruding, and it just looked nasty, kind of like a mangy dog is what she kind of described it as. And she said it just put the fear of evil over her. And she was, convinced 100% that thing is demonic. And when she went back to her, went and talked to her papa or whatever, they went back out looking to see if they could find something. And they didn't see nothing, no kind of trail or anything where it went. And I was like, well, did they see any tracks? And she was like, I don't know, but they went back with the shotgun trying to find it. So, but like I said, it was 7 foot tall, had red eyes. The hair was black. Its skin was black, but the hair was kind of patchy, kind of like it was mangy.
That poor thing, that must have scared her to death. How frightened was she when she told you about her encounter there at the Exxon?
Oh, she was bouncing around up and down. That's how I could tell that she was telling me the truth too. Cause you could tell whenever she was talking about it, it was getting her fired up again, and she was just, pouncing back and forth, running. And when she was describing it, she had her arms up, and everything else, but she was still terrified of it. And she was like, there's a lot of stuff out here that people don't really see, that if you come up on it in the wrong time, it's going to spook you for sure.
Yeah, that it will. It definitely will. And how long ago did you say this happened?
I don't know. She said it was years and years back, so I don't know on an exact date, but I think it was like 10 years ago or so, in the last 10 years, because she was a little bit younger. I know that. And she's probably in her 30s or 40s now, somewhere around in there. So, and they were young enough to be out walking on the back roads, and said the reason they were out walking, matter of fact, I know she was younger because said they were trying to smoke a cigarette. So that way her folks couldn't see them smoking. So they went off down the road to smoke them cigarettes. So it was definitely 10 plus years ago.
But when she was telling you, it was like she was reliving it. Yeah,
exactly.
Sounds like she is traumatized by it still. You ought to put a bug in her ear and have her submit a report. I'd be more than happy to talk with her. But of course, please don't pressure her to contact me. But if she does, then I'll be there for her.
I've told her about it. And actually, I wrote down your information for her. And when I went in the store earlier, she said she still has the little yellow sticky note on her refrigerator. She's supposed to be getting with you on it.
Well, she's listening. There's no pressure to do it, but yeah, if she wants to contact me to get some help, I'll be there for her. Be glad to help.
Yeah, and hers to me kind of stood out because it was during the daylight, That was just kind of odd, and kind of how I see it as a factor's going to werewolf, it has to be the moonlight out and they can't come out in the dark. I mean, during the day. And she said it was kind of suffering. So to me, I'm like, well, why was this thing out in the daylight? I wonder if the daylight's kind of, it makes its powers down, like it's kind of just affecting it to where it's not thinking right. Because for one, it was just laying on that bridge like it was injured and just kind of whimpering. And she did say too, it made out of a screech. I forgot about that. She did say it made a sound. But the sound that she described, it was kind of like a woman screaming, like a hollering, but it wasn't like woman, like it was just like that high pitch of whenever it took off on her. So she said that I forgot all about that part where she told me that it was screaming then, but I don't know. It was just odd for me to hear about one during the day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like I said, they happen all the time during the day, too. And yeah, I don't think it was hurt. I think it was just doing what it did to get their attention and probably make it more likely for them to approach it before it jumped up, and it did that routine, basically.
Yeah.
But that's still going to frighten the dickens out of you, especially if you're young. Poor thing.
It frightened me at any age seeing something like that. And especially knowing what I know about them now, you think that it's an uncommon event, but if you really start, there's just not many people talk about it. They don't want to sound like a yahoo, want to sound like a crazy. But once you start talking about it, you bring the story up. There's a lot of people that see these things. It's just something that they can't explain. And the first thing they go toward is like, it's a werewolf dogman. And I didn't realize it until, we started talking about the show or the podcast or whatnot. I've been talking about it a lot around. And like I said, there is a lot of people that have seen them. So that kind of makes me wonder if it goes back to what we talked about before, if it was the same one that we kept seeing during them years, it could be multiple ones.
Yeah, that's entirely possible.
And what was, I seen a comment on the podcast on the YouTube. What is a Wendigo?
Well, a Wendigo is a cryptid that supposedly it's a person who is cursed, and I think they're transformed into the form of this monstrous being that has antlers on its head like a buck, and it has really tall and lanky, and I think it has claws in most cases. But if you do a search on YouTube for Wendigo, then you'll get the phone book.
I did a little small search, and I seen one that had antlers on it, and all the things that we say, none of them had antlers on it. It was a kind of a flat top head, kind of like it wasn't like real rounded. The head of it's kind of flat, but it definitely didn't have no antlers on it. And that just makes you wonder what kind of creatures are out there, man. There's all kind of stuff out there that we don't know about.
No doubt. Now, this might sound like a strange question, but the reason why I'm asking you this is your encounters really frightened you, but from how I've heard you talk about them, I get the impression that if you had encounters, maybe not all the time moving forward, but if occasionally through the years this thing popped up and you continued to have random encounters, as long as you didn't get hurt, you'd be okay with that it might be a good thing. Was I reading you right about that, or
yeah,
reading you wrong?
Absolutely. I'm intrigued by it. Like, I'm very, very interested. You know, it does scare me, don't get me wrong, but it's just the thought of being able to witness something like that, to me, is like a blessing, and it's not everybody gets to see one. And if I'm lucky enough to see it, then I feel like that's more of a luck than bad luck type of thing. But going on the fact, as long as it's not hurting me or hurting nobody else, then it would be a witch hunt if it was the other way around. If this thing was hurting people or doing that, then it'd be another way. But I just kind of feel blessed to be able to see the thing. And I would just wonder, does it choose who it lets it see itself? Because it's got to have some kind of intelligence behind them to stay hidden in as much as it does. So I wonder if it picks its victims that see them.
Oh, normally I think they do. And it might seem strange to hear someone talk about wanting to have a Dogman encounter for the uninitiated, but yeah, that's how it is in a lot of cases. Not most cases, but in more cases than what you would expect. Eyewitnesses, they say if they had their druthers, sometime down the road they'd want to have another encounter, as long as they weren't harmed. It's hard to understand, but that's how it is.
Yeah, and like Sam, the first one that witnessed it in our group, he's terrified now. He does not want to see it at all. Like, it freaks him completely out. Like I said, he won't even, I don't know about now. Yeah, I probably still does. I haven't been out riding with him in a while. But like I said, he wouldn't even pee unless there was a street light out. And we were basically grown, we had a driver's license, or paying our own bills, everything else. And he wouldn't even pee unless there's a street light. So, like I said, yeah, some people, they kind of feed into it and some don't. I guess that would kind of be like your people you got to go out in these documentaries, like Bigfoot hunting, and then people that go out in the nights and coon hunt and all that. Like, it's the fear of the unknown that's kind of attracts them. Because like they always say, the more alive you feel, the closer to death you are, the more alive that you feel. So I think it's just the adrenaline rush that gets people like me. The adrenaline of it just kind of hypes me up. And it's kind of like a drug. You do a drug and you get that rush. Well, when I see the Dogman werewolf thing, I get that hit of dopamine and I feel that rush and I'm trying to go get it again. I think it's how I kind of feel about it. And then some, like I said, that it terrifies them and they just want to run away. So it's kind of like either the fight or flight kicks in, and depending on the individual that's having that experience.
Well, if that idea about the more excited you are, the closer you are to death's door, the night you turned to the left and saw that old boy right there by your house, woo! I bet you were knocking on death's door.
Yeah. I could just feel it right now. It's giving me chills. And by the time I made it through the house and to that side bedroom, and looked out that window, it was gone. It was gone. I don't understand why it would have stayed there, why the dogs are barking and everything else. And then I come outside and look, and then once it seen that I seen him and then went in the house, it went ahead and went back off into the darkness. So that's just kind of odd. It goes back to the thing, it feeds off of the fear, like it loves to scare people.
Mark, I've explained to literally thousands and thousands of Dogman eyewitnesses that in almost every case, these guys will go miles out of their way to force an encounter to happen, and then once it's in process, once they can see they frightened you to within an inch of your life, okay, well, mission accomplished. Move on. Does that sound familiar? That's exactly what happened that night when you turned to the left and saw it.
Yes, I mean exactly what it is. And I'm 100% convinced of it. 100% convinced. Because, like I said, it's had its time, just like when Sam was, riding his bicycle. He wasn't up but a kid, basically. And if it wanted to get him that night, it could have got him. I mean, right there in the flesh, it was sitting there eating on that dead carcass or whatever it was, but eating on that carcass, and he was alone down there with the full moon shining. There was nobody around. It could have just snatched him right up, and it chose not to. So,
exactly.
The reason we hear about it scaring people is because the ones that we don't hear about are them people that disappear, and nobody knows what happened.
And I'm sure that happens too. It's just not the norm. If it was the norm, then the numbers wouldn't be what they are. But I'm never going to say that that doesn't happen, because I'm sure it does happen where these guys do kill people once in a blue moon. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, but it's kind of like their intent. Like I told you, I think they have some type of intelligence, and they know that if they go attacking a bunch of humans, that we're going to rally up, we're going to get the torches out, we're going to go in the woods and we'll find them, and we'll take their whole species. I mean, that's just how the humans go. You know, it's just like with the Neanderthals, you know, way history goes, they say that the Homo sapiens, you know, took out the Neanderthals, and that's why we don't see none of them anymore, which the Neanderthals were actually more hairy. They had more muscle mass than we did, but the Homo sapiens had the mind, so they would trick them a lot, and that's how they were able to outsmart them and take them out, was not brute force, but by using their head and planning. So, like I said, I think the Dogmen know that if they go out and they go around killing people's kids and whatnot, or even, you know, somebody's brother, sister, aunt, uncle, mom, and dad, that all the family's going to rally around. And then once the family rallies around, then all the friends are going to rally around, and they're going to take care of the issue.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're really intelligent. So, yeah, of course they realize that. From listening to you talk about your first sighting, it sounds to me like you think the main reason why you had that encounter was how loud your Mustang was. Is that accurate?
That is very accurate. Yep. Like I said, I think it might even hurt its ears. You know, it might not even like that Mustang because it was a straight pipe. You know, it's real loud. So it definitely was bringing attention to me. And the fact that, you know, it ran out the road like that and hit the car, I hit whatever, you know, I honestly think that wasn't intentional, and it could take some type of damage like that. Because like I said, there was no blood and there wasn't a body, but there was just hair left over. So I honestly think it was just getting my attention right then.
You just might be right about that. I mean, if anyone listening hasn't listened to episode 117, that's probably the most popular episode of the show. Episode 117 of Dogman Encounters here. On that episode, the guest JT talked about his Coronet, his Dodge Coronet, and how loud it was, and he was driving through the country one night when he had a bad Dogman encounter. And he thought that how loud his car was, that's why he had that experience. So you just might be right about that. You just might be.
Could be. And then going back, it marks its targets too, you know, and the Sam was already on his list. And then I was always going out looking for him. He finally showed itself.
Yeah, you just might be right.
Absolutely. Vic, I'm telling you, when I hit that thing, Vic, I was doing 70. And it stopped me to 20 mile an hour. I mean, in an instant. I mean, it is amazing that how much force it was to stop that car like that. Because I've hit deer and dogs before. You know, you hit it, you keep moving, man. That thing had to have had some type of strength to stop that car like that, or some type of weight behind it, or whatever. So it was definitely strange.
See, that's the thing, Mark. It would have had to have so much more mass than it had to slow you from 70 to 20 almost instantly. If it did that, it had to have some kind of spiritual qualities to it, because you cannot explain that away using conventional means. There's just no way to do that.
Yes. And the fact that it directed all the impact to the bumper and didn't touch the hood on the car, like I explained before, that was just weird in its own. And it was small enough, like low enough to the ground to where it didn't touch the hood, but yet long enough to bust each headlight out and the blinker light. It's just crazy. Yeah. It just kind of makes you think of what kind of powers it might have if it can direct energy in a certain direction or whatnot, you know?
Oh, no doubt. Here's another thing about that just doesn't make sense unless it was a spiritual being. That Mustang, it was a unibody car, it's designed to crumple when it hits something like that. With the front impact, it's designed, since everything is connected to everything else on a unibody car, it's designed to crumple. So it would not make sense at all for just the bumper to be pushed in the way it was and the hood not crumple up and the whole front end be shoved back into the driver's compartment if you hit something that was able to slow you from 70 miles an hour to 20 almost instantly. That just would not make sense at all unless, like I said, it was a spiritual being.
Yep. That's you say, I know you understand exactly what I'm talking about. That's the part that freaked me out the most, was how come, it's like you said, why the engine should have been tucked into the dash to be up from an impact from 70 to 20 mile an hour. You know what I mean? It should have literally totaled that car out, and it didn't. I mean, it messed it up pretty good. I had to get a come along and tie chain to a tree and, straighten everything back out. But I was able to buy 2 headlights, a blinker cover, a new Mustang emblem in the front, and a bumper cover. And, I was good to go.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense at all. You shouldn't have been able to drive that car 10 feet, let alone work on it a little bit and then drive it home. That just does not make sense at all.
Yep. And when like I said, the bumper, when it impacted it, it didn't push it, forward into the engine bay. It kind of knocked it toward the ground to where the actual bumper behind the bumper cover was dragging the ground, throwing sparks out as I was going down the road. So it's kind of odd how it all happened. And then the fact where it went down and then I didn't run it over either. It's like it directed the energy to one spot, going straight down and then kind of backwards a little bit. And then I seen where a guy, he was on the comments. Did you read that one where he was like, don't let nobody get their hands on that hair? Should never get it back.
Yeah, that's true. He's right about that.
Yes, he is. That's kind of like the first time that we talked. I said, the government hides a lot of stuff from the public. And that's kind of one of them deals. Like, you wouldn't want to let nobody get their hands on it. But at the same time, I think I could come off of a little bit of it. I would take that chance just to see if I could get somebody to, run the hairs and see what kind of species that was.
Well, see, that's the thing. If they do tell you what species it is, it's going to come back Dutch Shepherd or some nonsense like that. They're never going to tell you what it actually was.
Exactly. Yep. That's right. It had to be a real trusted source,
Yeah, good luck finding one of them.
I sure don't know nobody.
Yeah, that makes 2 of us. It does. Now, something else I don't understand is you said it was pretty close to the ground as it was running that night. Did it seem to be trying to stay low to the ground, or did it seem like that was only due to it being long but not tall?
It seems like it was trying to, it does. It seems like it was, just like its belly was on the ground. And I don't know if that was just, because of how fast it was moving or whatnot, but it was definitely staying low. It wasn't like a deer when a deer's jumping up, a deer jumps upward. This was kind of running sort of like a cheetah. You know how when a cheetah's running full speed, it's kind of leaping forward, but it's staying low to the ground to stay low so its prey doesn't see it, like it's hunting, and it's trying to stay under the grass. And that's how this thing was running, Vic. It come out from the wood line, and the strides in the distance that it was making on each step was amazing. It was just unexplainable how fast this thing was moving. Every step that it took, it was almost like it was covering 10 to 12 foot on each step. Just moving real, real fast. And all this happened in a blink of an eye, but like I said, when it came out of the tree line, it's about, 10 foot, till it starts going up the hill because the highway's built up on the hill. And it was probably 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, and then into the 4th step is when I actually ran into it. And, and that's a good distance. That's almost like 20 yards to 30 yards or so. And it covered it in 3 steps.
See, that right there is exactly why I tell people, you don't get away from a dog, man. If it has it in its head and wants to get you, it's letting it get away if you do.
Yes. Yes, it feeds off that. I think that's what it does for fun. That's just its purpose. It does that for fun. Like a cat scratches on a scratch post, like that. The dogmen go out, they just feed off of scaring people. They really do. There's no other way to explain it, the way the sightings occur, because it's like it shows enough of itself to where you see it, but it won't let you get close enough to where you can really pinpoint it. You know what I mean? Or close enough to where you can even endanger it. And like I said, that night that Tyler had that AR pointed on it, just think about this, Vic, okay, in a sense. Think about every animal out in the kingdom. Anything that sees a truck or a human coming through, it's a wild animal. They always run. Even some domesticated dogs will see you and they'll run. What type of animal comes through a yard, well-lit area, down into the road in front of a vehicle, goes up a ridge and stops and turns around and looks?
A dog,
and stares at you. That's crazy. It's crazy.
A dogman would.
It was wanting to scare you. It was exactly a dog, man. It was wanting to scare us. There's no other way to, explain it. And going back to the spiritual being powers you were saying, it knew that Tyler wasn't going to pull the trigger on that gun. It knew it. It knew it scared him enough, looked him probably dead in the eyes, where he dropped the gun and just took off. His fight or flight kicked in, and he chose flight, and he took off. He didn't even stay to fight. It still boggles my mind that he did not pull the trigger that night. And, to be honest, I don't even think a gunshot would hurt this thing. Because even humans, as long as you don't get shot in like the lung or the heart or something like that, or in the head, of course, we can even handle a bullet. This thing right here, there ain't no telling how many bullets it could take. Especially if it took a 70-mile-an-hour impact from a Ford Mustang. I think that car weighs almost 3,000 pounds. And, it took that lick and just kept on going. Like it wasn't nothing. And the way that car is set up too, it's like it's kind of a sharp-edged vehicle. Well, one time me and Sam and James were on the way to work. I was working at Kellogg's this time. We did contracting out there. But anyways, we hit a deer before, and this is kind of nasty, so cover your ears if you don't want to hear it. When we hit that deer, Vic, it exploded the guts, and blood just covered the whole window. We're doing 60 mile an hour, right? And when we hit this deer, the guts and poop just covered the whole windshield, and we couldn't even see. And then Sam hits the windshield wipers, and it just smears the blood and everything. We couldn't see nothing. And he has to roll the window down and look out the window just to see. And then the smell of the intestines started coming through the vents, the air vents.
Oh, no.
So we had the heat blowing that morning. And, it exploded, that thing. Whatever I hit that night, I know it was a werewolf dogman. When I hit dogman that night, Vic, it took it. It didn't bleed. It didn't do nothing. I mean, it took the lick and just kept going. And it's not even like when I hit it, Vic, I didn't knock it off anywhere. I couldn't see it no more. Like I said, once I hit it and it was just lights out, I couldn't see a thing. I didn't see the body no more. It wasn't like I hit it and it knocked it forward, or I hit it and I knocked it over to the right. It's almost like I hit it and it was still able to keep running as I hit the thing. But it was crazy how stout that is. Very, very crazy. That goes back to, I was saying, it could take a bullet for sure. So I don't understand why or what type of animal that night turned around and looked us in the eyes after it was clearly running from us or trying to get our attention. It was running wide open and crossed the road and then just stopped and turned around and looked at us like, yeah, here I am. So I don't know, Vic. That's crazy. It's just a lot of odd things that don't add up. It's just really unexplainable. It gives you the wow factor. It's insane.
Yes, it is. How sure are you that it didn't go under the car?
100% sure. It didn't go under the car at all. Like I said, and for one, like I said, I didn't, feel it whenever I bounced over it. But the way that the bumper, like I said, when it knocked that bumper down, it knocked it all the way to the asphalt. So it wasn't able to go under the vehicle either. So, and it didn't rip no transmission lines or none of the exhaust off the car either. So, like I said, it definitely didn't go under it.
So it's literally like it disappeared then.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like it that's why I said, like, when I hit it, it had to have just kept running. You know what I mean? Like I said, I didn't see it no more. After I hit it, it was lights out too. The headlights went out, but I didn't see it no more. But then when I got up to that church, Vic, like I said, I did hear, and the church ain't far from where I hit it. I'd say maybe, I don't know, an eighth of a mile. We'll find out in the pictures, because when I'm going to go to the exact spot that I, hit it at, and I'll be able to really for sure know then. But it's like maybe an eighth of a mile, a half a mile. And I did hear something in the woods, like running and making ruckus. And I heard all them dogs barking, but I don't know. It was like it just disappeared, kind of like you said, or it just kept running, one of the two. But it took that lick and it kept going, which is just insane to me. I don't know much that can take a lick from a car and just keep going.
Well, if it is a spiritual being, it could. It could do that and more.
Yeah, it could.
Do you want to kick yourself for getting out of the car the way you did and pulling on your bumper cover? Or are you okay with you doing that? Because I guess if you wouldn't have done that, you couldn't have driven home.
I had to. It was a chance of survival. I mean, I had to. I didn't want to, Vic. I went back into the car a couple times during that process, and that alone had me so terrified. Normally, when you get out and you have a wreck, it's a traumatic experience, but not enough to where I was literally in tears just about, and was running, jumping back in the car when I would hear noises, and then jumping back out, and then made sure that I had my gun ready. I had my 30-06 and a 22 pistol, but I couldn't even work on my car, Vic, and get it back going to be roadworthy in a timely manner, because I was so terrified about the noises that I was hearing in the woods. And then when it got quiet and I didn't hear no noise, then I was even terrified even more. And it goes back to where it scared me so much when that bumper was on the ground, and I'm sitting there and I'm trying to, lift on it, and I wasn't having no luck. And then I heard something in the sides of the woods, and it really freaked me out. And it was like, man, my adrenaline started pumping, and my veins started bulging, and just my heart rate went way up. And I just grabbed that and bare knuckled that freaking bumper and just pulled it with all the strength I had, and was able to get it at least about an inch off the ground to where it wasn't scraping and, catching my car on fire from all the sparks flying. But it is a terrifying experience when you do encounter them. And every time, and you hear how I talk about it, it seems like, I would be okay when I do see it, but every time I seen it, it freaks me out. I get terrified, and all my planning, it goes out the window. All this macho stuff, I was going to do this or that, it all goes out the window, and I just get terrified. And the run is my first instinct.
Oh, sure, your plans go out the window. Everyone's got a plan until they get hit.
Yeah, that's it.
For a while, I'm sure you did, but are you at a place now where you don't relive those encounters you had, or do you still relive them?
It's like this, Vic. Whenever I'm really talking about it, like in right now, the same dopamine hit and everything, and the serotonin and all them chemicals in my brain that ignite, I get that same feeling right now. It just thinking about them encounters, like it's just all mixture into one, and it really gets me fired up. And yes, I still relive them, and it's been years, Vic. I think it was 2014 the last time I seen one, and yeah, I mean that's 11 years ago, and yeah, I still relive it, and it runs back in my mind. I mean, I can still see the moon is real bright. The landscape has like a blue kind of tint to it, how a full moon does. And then I can just see that blackness of that creature running so fast, and just low to the ground and making strides that are 10 foot in each step. It's insane the amount that I relive every time. It all plays right back in my head, and I feel the same feeling that I did that night. The only thing is different is the scary part about it. I can not be terrified of it as I feel the same feeling. The only part feeling that it don't come back is being the terrified, how scared I was.
Well, I'm sure to a certain degree it comes back also.
Yeah, it does. And I want to kind of, like, even right now, I just caught myself kind of looking over my shoulder. I'm out here in my car in my front yard, and I'm just kind of looking. It's dark. I'm like, is that thing watching me right now? But I don't know. I doubt it's watching right now, but it could be. You never know. You never know. And
I sure hope not.
Apparently, Vic, this is a hot spot for Dogman area, West Tennessee. And I was, it's like I've said, I've mentioned it to people around town, and a few people have their stories of their own. And apparently, Pickwick, Tennessee, and Counts, Tennessee, and Savannah area in Hardin County is a hot spot for dogmen too. They have a lot of hills out there, and it's a lot of government land for one too, and they have a lot of natural springs and stuff. So that would be a good spot for them to hide in and to be able to flourish.
Yeah, it sure would. It's got all the resources a dogman could want, so.
Yeah,
it's no wonder that there would probably be quite a few there.
And Vic, how do you think that dogmen come about? Do you think that there's some type of spiritual event that happens, or do they mate, or how does a dogman come to exist?
Well, that could be a whole show right there in and of itself.
It could.
I wouldn't be surprised if there are several kinds of dogmen. Some dogmen might have been created in government labs in a test tube. Others might be naturally occurring creatures. Others might be spiritual beings. So maybe there are several types. I don't know. But that's something all we can do is guess at. I mean, we're never going to know for sure.
Yeah. Now, what caught my mind there, or my ears, should I say, is the government in a test lab. That could be very much true. Very, very true. But, and then at the same time, werewolf and dogman stories go back a long time in the human history before we even had medical labs like that. So maybe some of them are a recreation of the original, because we still don't know as humans how we even got here either. Like, well, that would kind of be like the same question as, well, how was the first human made? Religion put to the side, but, and how was a rabbit made, and stuff like that. But it's a really, really something for me to even wonder upon myself, because I've experienced this thing, and for all I know, this thing could pop up again tomorrow. But I'm not out and about like I was in my younger days, and I just come home now, but I don't know. You never know.
That's right. You never do. Did you and your buddies get mad at Martindale for not firing at it that night, or did you take him seriously when he told you that he thought it was just a person in a werewolf suit?
Yeah, no, we knew he was scared. No, I'm glad he didn't really shoot it, because like I was telling you before, is I don't really want to kill the thing either, because if it's an endangered species, for one, I don't want to take out no kind of species. But then for two, if it's a spiritual type thing and he done fired off on it, I don't want that bad voodoo on me. And for three, I don't blame him at all for dropping the gun and taking off. I'll actually find it. That's what I would have done, especially being the first time you've seen something. If he thought it was somebody in a suit, for one, if he really did, Vic, he wouldn't have floored it and took off and drove like a maniac down that gravel road. Like, when I say he was driving like Dale Earnhardt Jr., he had that sucker sideways, slinging rocks all the way to the tree line up top and up and down around each curve, wide open. He actually put all of our lives at risk that night by driving crazy. And, I think that he just didn't want to believe in some type of cryptid creature. He didn't want to sound like a loony. A lot of people are like, the crazies are out in the full moon. Well, I say Dogman's out on the full moon and the crazies too. But I don't blame him at all, Vic, for not shooting it. Not at all.
Well, subconsciously, I think he knew what it was, and that's why he drove the way he did.
Yeah. Yep.
When you drove 5 miles down the road that night after you and your buddies saw it, how sure are you that it wasn't a different Dogman that you saw?
Vic, I've always thought, until I've really talked to you about it, I thought it was the same one, because in my mind, there's not many of these things that exist. But the more research that I've done, and what I mean research is in the field, not just, looking up stuff or reading a book somewhere, there might be multiple Dogmen around, but that one that's in Roger Springs area, I still think that it was the same one, and that thing was running, because like I said, I seen it speed that night when I hit it in the GT. So it could have, if it took a direct straight path through the woods, it could have got there and posted up in that tree line like that. And the way that it kind of, it had its fist on the ground and its face was just, straight forward. It didn't, watch us when we went by, like with its head turning. It's almost like that thing, its eyes were able to look over to the right and just watch us go past on the left. And it just stayed perfectly still to get that scary effect. You know what I mean? Like it lets you see just enough, but not, it's showing some of his cards, but it ain't showing you the whole deck. And by posting up there, that was kind of just scary in its own, the way that it wasn't moving. You know what I mean? You got something sitting there in a tree line and a vehicle's coming by and it's just standing still with its face turned straight ahead. That was just kind of creepy. I think that was one of his tactics of trying to scare me, or scare everybody, not just me, scare everybody in the trucks. I think it was the same one, but in a sense, I think there's more than one out here. There's gotta be. And it might be like a wolf pack, how wolf packs, they stay in a certain area. The encounters that I've heard about around here, I've kind of mapped them out. And it's like it has different territories, I kind of believe that we'll have one that's down in the Hatchie Bottom, and the one that was seen in Wolf Pen, and the one that's seen in Roger Springs. I think that's 3 different packs. I really do.
Well, you might be right about that, but I have doubts about them hanging out in numbers like that on a regular basis. And that's because if you think about their daily caloric requirements, it's bad enough for them to try to feed themselves. Just having one Dogman in an area for any appreciable amount of time, it's going to blow through the resources in that area in no time. But if you have more than one, they're going to just decimate the resources in a big area in a very short time. So I'm convinced for that reason that if they are just flesh and blood creatures, they're going to live alone. They might come together occasionally, but not with any regularity.
Yeah, when I say pack, I meant like that one Dogman's territory. You know what I'm saying? Like there's 3 different, it's got to be 3 different ones maybe. But like I said, like you're talking about, they're not grouped up into a bunch. It's one and it has its own designated territory.
Oh, I see. Okay, that makes sense.
I kind of misspoke when I said in a pack. I meant like, I was saying like a wolf pack and kind of like a reference, how they got their certain area. But the Dogman is in a singular one, has like the east side of Middleton, and then you got the west side of Middleton, and then just southeast you'll have Hatchie Bottom. And them are, that's probably about a 50-mile radius area of what I'm talking about. And in them areas, like I said, it also too, you have the river, like you have the Hatchie River that runs through that area too as well. And then you have canals that branch off of that. And then you also have little creeks that branch off, and they all branch off. It's kind of like if you ever seen like a heart laid out on an operating table in the vessels, how it all pumps blood to the heart. That's kind of like the Hatchie River is around here. You have all these creeks. The creeks run into the canals. Then the canals run into the Hatchie River. And in them areas, you have all them resources for water, because I think everything has to have water to survive.
Oh, definitely. And of course, all of your theories about those resources, yeah, you might be spot on, but if they are spiritual beings, which, yeah, there's a strong possibility on that, then all that goes right out the window.
That does. It sure does.
It does.
And that might be why there wasn't no blood that night.
Yeah, that would explain it. It really would. It would explain a lot of things.
Yeah.
You're obviously interested in Dogmen, Mark, now that you had those encounters, but what about Sam? Does he have any interest in them? I know he's terrified of them, but does he have any interest in them, or does he try to avoid thinking about them at all costs?
He tries to avoid thinking about it at all costs. Always has, too. Yeah, he's terrified of it. Like, he didn't even like it when we would bring it up when it was a full moon, or even if it didn't even have to be a full moon, Vic. And Sam, if we talked about, all I'd have to say is, the thing. I wouldn't even have to say the word werewolf, and he would just tremble. Now, he's a funny comedian type of guy, too. Like, he'll make jokes, but when it comes to talking about the werewolf, now he calls it a werewolf, not a dog man, but he's terrified. He avoids any type of interaction or conversation about it. It shivers him to the bone.
Yeah, well, given your experiences, when I say yours, I'm talking about you, Sam's, Martindale, and all of your buddies. It seems like when you've talked about it, that has spurred on more encounters, so I can understand Sam feeling that way. I can understand that totally.
And, he was younger, too, when he had that first experience as well, too. So it might have traumatized him as a child, and that childhood trauma kind of, it instilled into his brain.
Yeah, it's bad enough to have an encounter when you're an adult, but when you're as young as he was and you have an encounter like that really traumatizes you, yeah, that's just tough. It really is. But speaking of him, how's he doing now? Can he function properly without too much trouble? I know he's still terrified of these guys, but how's he doing?
Oh, yeah, he's doing good. He's actually a foreman at a company. It's SBI, works out of Kellogg's. It's kind of a contracting company for Kellogg's, and he actually runs a group of guys. He has about, probably I'd say 6 to 10 guys that he's supervising on a daily. And then he also does work for the city of Middleton as well. So, and he has a YouTube channel. It's Sam Moore, I think Sam Moore 318 or something, but he does gun videos on YouTube if you ever want to check him out and see him on there. And he does good. He has 2 kids and a wife, and he functions good. And he moved out of the trailer, too. He's kind of a nice house now. He's just put in a swimming pool this summer. So, and then he built a pond behind his house as well. So he's thriving. He's thriving.
Wow, yeah, sounds like he is. That's great. When you had your last encounter at that plantation, you mentioned the full moon to your girlfriend that you had back then. But you also said that when you told her about your encounters, she rolled her eyes. Did she not seem to believe you?
She didn't want to believe that there's a werewolf. You know what I mean? Just the thought in a werewolf, just saying that word, it's so unbelievable. You don't believe in it until you see it, So yeah, that's exactly the type of reaction that I got. Like, it's a full moon, but whenever I ran back up in the house and she seen how scared I was and the dogs, she was scared then too. She knew I seen something, but she don't know what it is.
Yeah, when she saw your face, I'll bet that did get the message across.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, I came in the house, I locked it down. I mean, and I even locked my bedroom door. I even locked the bedroom door. But like I said, I peeped out of that window and it was gone, thankfully. So, but in a way, Vic, I wish it would have stayed around enough where she could have looked out the window and seen it, But like I said, some people, it's hard for them to believe it. It is. And I understand it because I was the same way. Before I actually witnessed myself, Vic, I wouldn't, I'm like, what were you smoking? You had some good weed that day or something, like you're seeing stuff, but it's reality. These people that have these experiences, Vic, they are seeing something. It's not a figment of their imagination. And it's terrifying. It is very terrifying. Like that woman at the Exxon, she said that thing was the devil. That it was just pure evil, just the look of it and the vibe that it was putting off was just like the evil vibe. And then the fact she said that thing was charred and looked like it'd been in a fire, that's just kind of interesting to me, the way she described that. She described it as in the body of the thing she seen, with the dogman that she seen looked like it had been in a fire, was just charred up. You know, and in all my cases, Vic, it was a full moon, and I didn't get that visual effect of the fire, you know, like it'd been burned in a fire. But that goes back to maybe you're talking about like a spiritual thing and how they come about. I wonder why it is like that dark color, you know, like a charred look.
Yeah, it does make you wonder about a lot of things. It really does. The questions never end when it comes to these guys.
Yeah. And that charred look, Vic, it sounds really familiar that night that I'm talking about. I hit it. You know, it was running fast, but that is a good description of it. It looks like it stepped right out of a fire.
Yeah, I can only imagine. When you walked out front that night and turned to the left and saw it, what was it doing with its hands?
It was just standing real tall, Vic. And it was motionless, and it was just staring like it was staring a hole through me. I mean, it was not moving its hands. It was just like kind of, how do I explain this? Okay. So its hands were up, but its elbows were pointing east and west, and it was facing toward the south. So you have its elbows are east and west, and its hands are just balled up, kind of like into like a claw-like look. You know, like kind of curled like a claw, and its eyes, like I said, were just staring at me. But the eyes didn't seem like they were straight ahead. It kind of looked like they were poking kind of out the side of its skull. Like, not like how a regular dog's eyes is real close together. The gap between each eyeball was just like massive. And it, like I said, it was just standing up. And it's where its hind legs and its joints were on its legs. Like, it was just every bone was protruding, like just sticking out real thick. And it was just staring at me, just looking. And it had its like arms set to the side, like I said, east and west for each elbow, and facing toward the south at me. And it just stared at me and did not move an inch. I mean, not a bit. I couldn't even tell if it was breathing or not. It was just staring at me. And apparently the dogs didn't have no effect on it either. And that just makes me wonder, is like when my dogs are barking, most animals around there would have took off running. Whatever this was, Dogman, I know it was Dogman, but you know, this thing was just staring at me, and it was placed right beyond where the light is from the front porch is lighting up the yard. Is standing right there in the darkness, just looking at me.
They know how to push our buttons. They really do.
Yep.
Yeah, they're masters at it. Well, it's about time for us to get out of here, Mark. But before we do you have any closing comments you want to put out there for us?
You know, I do. I have a couple. You know, if anybody sees them from here on out, let's just make a pact. Let's try to get a picture of them. I would love to learn more about this thing. And like I said, just if you see one, try not to get scared and run to see if you can get up a good picture of it. And then don't go out looking for something, and you might see something you don't want to see too. Be careful what you wish for.
That's really good advice. It always is. Well, Mark, I can't thank you enough for coming back on to answer all these questions. I really do appreciate it.
I appreciate you taking the time to ask them. I enjoy talking with you.
Well, it's been fun talking with you, too. I just hate the fact you had to go through those experiences, but yeah, we can't go back and change that. Well, having said all that, thanks again so much for your time, and hope you have a great night.